We interrupt this regularly scheduled programming to, number one, congratulate the Boston Celtics on winning their 18th NBA championship. And number two, to let you know that now that the season is officially over, we will be releasing the last of our If I Were the GM series of blogs on sports.theclosingtag.com. And I will be doing that within the next couple of days. So keep your eyes out for that. That's again at sports.theclosingtag.com. All 30 blogs will be kept on the site pretty much forever because the internet is forever. Thank you for listening and for watching and for reading. And now, on to your regularly scheduled programming. Following is a Galactic Digital Studios production. This is Sports Central, part of the Closing Tag Network. Congratulations are in order for the Boston Celtics. Caitlin Clark's being bullied might actually be good for the WNBA. Klay Thompson may have already shown his cards. And what I would do if I were expanding the NBA. This is Sports Central, part of the Closing Tag Network, and you'll excuse the lighting a little bit because I am recording this practically immediately after Game 5 of the NBA Finals. I'm not going to bother watching the trophy ceremony. Just doesn't appeal to me. Sorry. But I will say congratulations to the Boston Celtics. This whole entire playoffs have felt like one giant circle jerk. I almost made up a new word. And none of these series really felt close, to be honest with you. There was a little bit of that hiccup in the first round with Miami, but once they got past the first game against the Heat, it was pretty much just scorched earth from there. Yeah. Boston pretty much made fools out of everybody. They made fools out of the Miami Heat 4-1. They made fools out of the Cleveland Cavaliers 4-1, and may or may not have precipitated the exodus of Donovan Mitchell from Cleveland. I've already said my piece about that. Pretty much swept Indiana 4-0. And I don't care what New York Knicks fans think, your team would not have had any more of a chance against those Celtics than Indiana did. Just wouldn't. I'm sorry. Get your heads out of the delusional clouds and come back down to earth. Okay? Cool. And then, of course, pretty much swept Dallas. We're just going to call it a sweep, if that's cool with everybody. And we can forget about what happened in Game 4, where Dallas basically said, yeah, we're not going to go down like that. What that game reminded me of, and I don't know if it's because of the fact that I just barely got done watching the documentary on the 1996 Seattle Supersonics. By the way, I encourage you to go check that out on YouTube. Vice does a really good job with these documentaries. They do excellent job with documentaries like Dark Side of the Ring and stuff like that, and they just knocked it out of the park with this Seattle Supersonics documentary. So definitely go check that out. But I don't know if it's because of the fact that I just got done watching that, but Game 4 between Boston and Dallas kind of reminded me of what happened in that series between Chicago and Seattle. If you remember, Chicago, arguably the best team in the history of the league, or at least that year's Chicago team was anyway, went 72-10 in the regular season, pretty much just steamrolled through everybody in the playoffs, and went up 3-0 against Seattle, in Seattle, mind you. Games 4 and 5 were held in Seattle, and Chicago looked bored, uninterested, not really all there in those games. And the growing conspiracy theory has long been that Michael Jordan basically said, we're not winning this series in 4. We're not winning the series in 5. We're going to win the series in 6 in Chicago on Father's Day. Coincidentally, the first time that Michael Jordan made it to the NBA Finals since his dad's passing. And we're just going to enjoy our time in Chicago. That's what this felt like to me tonight, was Boston basically saying, we're not going to win this series in Dallas. We want to win this series in front of our hometown fans in Boston, and we're going to let them enjoy this. Now, do I think that that's a smart strategy, especially when you're up 3-0? No. But, if that is what the strategy was, it worked. Congratulations. Yay. But none of these series really felt very close at all. And it was basically how it played out the minute that Boston traded for Jrue Holiday. Boston combined the offensive prowess of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown with the defensive prowess of Jrue Holiday, had enough bench help and enough depth in guys like Derek White and Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford. Al Horford, by the way, deserves that championship more than anybody. He's been through the ringer a number of times, and honestly, the guy deserves it. I definitely, congratulate him as well. But Jrue Holiday won his second NBA championship before Giannis. Interesting how that works, eh? But we'll get back to the NBA here in a minute. I want to kind of switch gears now to the WNBA. Caitlin Clark. We've talked about Caitlin Clark in the past and how basically the entire WNBA is practically bullying the poor girl. Well, it continued over the weekend. There was a game between Indiana and Chicago, the Indiana Fever and the Chicago Sky. The Fever ended up winning the game, but there was one significant play that has pretty much been the talk of the WNBA world over the last 48 hours, and that was Angel Reese. Let's talk about this for a minute. So I'm going to set up the scene here. So Caitlin Clark's going up for a layup. She's getting ready to go with a left-hand layup. And from her front side, you've got, I can't remember the girl's name, but she ended up blocking the shot clean. So even if there was no incidental contact or any contact whatsoever, the shot would have been blocked. Angel Reese is coming up from behind and is trying to do the same thing. Only slight problem is that her arm and her hand incidentally smack the backside of Caitlin Clark. And you can see her neck going, whipping back and falling down to the floor. That was a very scary moment for Caitlin Clark, but she's okay. The Golden Goose is fine. And Angel Reese was assessed a flagrant foul 1 because it was incidental. Now, was there anything wrong with the play? No. I don't think there was anything wrong with the play. I don't think there was anything wrong with the call. I do agree with the referees. There was incidental contact, and it did, make contact with Caitlin Clark's head. Under the rules of both the NBA and the WNBA, that would be classified as flagrant foul 1. Now, if it was intentional, then it would have been flagrant foul 2, and Angel Reese would have been disqualified from the rest of the game and probably fined and suspended for fucking with the Golden Goose. But that's not what happened. Now, Angel Reese is claiming that there's some sort of conspiracy going on, that, the league is out to protect Caitlin Clark like the NBA protects LeBron James, which maybe that there might be something to that. But here's the thing that I want to talk about for a second. What if this is all engineered to get more eyeballs on the WNBA? Now, if Caitlin Clark had just come in, dominated everybody, completely taken the game by storm, and, maybe even won a WNBA championship for Indiana, would we really be talking about this much? Probably not. But it's this controversy. It's the fact that, all these players are speaking out against her. All these players are speaking out against Caitlin Clark and this, favoritist, treatment of this rookie. Keep in mind, Caitlin Clark is still a rookie. All this talk, all this, preferential treatment about this rookie, what about us? What about all the players that have been here for years, that have been busting their ass, trying to get this league going? Where's our treatment? Where's our spot in the time in the spotlight? Where's our shine? Maybe it's all being done intentionally to drive more eyeballs and to get the media to talk more about the WNBA. And guess what? It's working. How many times have I come on here and talked about the WNBA before Caitlin Clark? And how many times have I come on here and talked about the WNBA after? Guaranteed, it's a very different number. Same thing like if you turn on ESPN, you turn on, First Take, like Shannon Sharp and Stephen A. Smith talking about the WNBA, talking about, pay disparity. Skip Bayless, Undisputed, same thing, talking more about the WNBA. Colin Cowherd, talking more about the WNBA. All these different media heads are talking more and more and more about the WNBA. And it's not just because of Caitlin Clark. It's because of the attention that Caitlin Clark is drawing and the attention that all these other girls are drawing because of their resentment towards Caitlin Clark. So I do think that there is something to that. Now, do I think it's all intentional? If it's all some kind of like conspiracy theory where, whoever the commissioner is, I don't know their name, is coming together with all these officials and all these media heads and ESPN and whatnot, and basically concocting this little plan to talk more and more and more about the WNBA because of all the stuff that's going on. I don't buy it. But there is a cause and effect to what's going on right now. The cause being players are being more resentful and they're being more outspoken about their resentment. And the effect being now more media heads are talking about their resentment. So, something to keep an eye on for sure. Something else to keep an eye on is the Instagram account of one Klay Thompson. Golden State Warriors sharpshooter Klay Thompson has scrubbed all Golden State Warriors mentions and pictures and media and everything from his Instagram account. Basically from all of his social media, not just Instagram, Threads, X, all of it. If he has a TikTok, I would imagine that he's scrubbed it off of there as well. Now, if you haven't been paying attention, Klay Thompson is becoming an unrestricted free agent in, let me do my rudimentary math here, 13 days. Less than 2 weeks. And the likelihood of him leaving Golden State is very real. And the big part of that is because of the fact that the two sides can't seem to agree on money. Klay Thompson wants to be paid a max contract, which if he were nearly half the player that he was, before his ACL injury, he would basically earn it. He would have basically earned that money. The Golden State Warriors look at him with his current injury situation, with the fact that he, for the first time in his career, was benched last year in favor of the younger Jonathan Kuminga. And the fact that they're basically looking to retool the roster around Steph Curry and Draymond Green. And I called it when I wrote the blog, I believe about 2 weeks ago, for the Golden State Warriors. If I'm the Golden State Warriors GM, I let Klay walk. I let Chris Paul walk. I basically tell anybody that's over the age of 30 that's not Steph Curry or Draymond Green, nice knowing you guys. Bye. There's the door. Don't let it hit you on the way out. And I say that with respect and admiration for Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson, if not for the fact that Steph Curry was on the same team as him, would probably be known as one of the greatest, if not the greatest shooter in the history of the game. And that's saying something. Because you've got guys like Ray Allen, Reggie Miller, Larry Bird, Craig Hodges, Mark Price, all these guys, Jeff Hornacek, all these guys that were just excellent shooters. And Klay and Steph Curry, by the way. And Klay Thompson is in that conversation. But the fact of the matter is he has not been the same since his injuries. He is not the same player. And for Golden State to basically pay him a lifetime achievement award and run the risk of, missing out on the last good years of Steph Curry that they have left would be a crime and would be a disservice to Steph Curry. Steph Curry, who may very well go down as the greatest shooter in the history of the game. There is no dispute about that. Steph Curry, if not the greatest shooter of all time, is in the top 3. Exactly. As my cat agrees with me. So that's something to keep an eye on as well. Now, the scuttlebutt has always been that the only other team that would be able and willing to give him a max contract other than Golden State would be Orlando. Could he work in a system with the Orlando Magic, with Paolo Banchero? It's possible. And they've got a pretty good shooter on that team as well in Joe Ingles. So Joe Ingles and Klay Thompson for 1 year could potentially be the new Splash Brothers. I don't see it happening, at least not to that level of success. But could they potentially make the playoffs? Very possible. Could they even make it past the first round? Very possible. But do I see them taking down Boston? No. Do I see them getting past New York? No. unless New York trades for Donovan Mitchell. In that case, then it's going to be a dogfight. But anyway, I have spent the last 2.5 weeks kind of articulating in no uncertain terms what I would do if I were the GM of each of the 30 NBA teams. I am now going to flip that, and I am going to give you my assessment on what I would do if I was the commissioner of the NBA. If I had Adam Silver's job, number one, I would have no hair left. I can see why Adam Silver is bald. Just saying. Stress leads to hair loss. You know, it's a thing. Yes, it does. I'm telling you. And honestly, let's talk about expansion for a minute. So we pretty much already know the two towns that are going to be getting an expansion team once NBA expansion is approved. It's going to be Seattle and Vegas. Sorry, sorry Mexico City, sorry Louisville, sorry Montreal, sorry Vancouver, sorry Kansas City, sorry St. Louis, sorry. But it makes too much sense for the NBA to expand to Seattle and Vegas. It makes too much sense. From a financial aspect, it makes all the sense in the world for Vegas to get an expansion team because of the fact that Vegas is getting an expansion team in everything right now. They've got the Raiders. They're getting the Oakland Athletics. The Oakland Athletics by way of Sacramento. They got the Golden Knights. The reigning Stanley Cup champions, by the way. Well, I guess maybe not for long, because Florida's pretty much about ready to pounce on that. Is it Florida or Edmonton that's up right now? I can't remember. Nobody asked you. Just kidding. But they've got the Raiders. They've got the A's. They've got the Golden Knights. They are on track to become the next town for Major League Soccer expansion. So it only makes sense that they have an NBA team as well. Now, the thing that's long prevented Vegas from having any kind of foothold in the sports world is because of gambling. Well, if you remember, there was a ruling, I believe Congress made a ruling, I would say back in 2018, 2019, somewhere in that range, that legalized sports gambling. Now, certain leagues won't let their own players bet on games, rightfully so. No names mentioned, Major League Baseball. But sports betting is now legal on a federal level, which means now Vegas can be in play for professional sports leagues. And we've been seeing more and more and more of Vegas involvement in the NBA. So again, it makes all the sense in the world for Vegas to get an expansion team. Seattle, all the sense in the world, because the Supersonics fans were robbed back in 2007. There's no cutting around that. They were robbed bad. So, I am going to present how I would handle expansion. Let's just play hypothetical. It's only two teams. It's Seattle and Vegas. So here's what I would do to restructure the league, to restructure all 32 NBA teams. Now, as you'll see on this chart, there are no longer just 3 divisions per conference. There are now 4. And I'll explain the significance of that here in just a minute. So in the Eastern Conference, you have the Central Division, the Atlantic Division, the Southeast Division, and the Northeast Division. The Northeast Division will have the Boston Celtics, reigning champions. At least now they are anyway. The Brooklyn Nets, the New York Knicks, and the Toronto Raptors. Now I have the two New York teams in there in the same division because it makes all the sense in the world. In the Southeast Division, we have the Atlanta Hawks, the Memphis Grizzlies, ported over from the West, the Miami Heat, and the Orlando Magic. The Atlantic Division, we have Charlotte, Detroit, Philadelphia, and Washington. And the Central Division, we have Chicago, Cleveland, Indiana, and Milwaukee. Now let's move over to the West. And this is where I explain why I have 4 divisions per conference instead of the 3 that we have now. In the West, we have the Southwest Division, the Midwest Division, the Northwest Division, and the Pacific Division, or as I like to call it, the Cali Division, California Division, whatever. So in the Pacific/California Division, we have the Golden State Warriors, the Los Angeles Clippers, the Los Angeles Lakers, and the Sacramento Kings. In the Northwest Division, we have the Denver Nuggets, the Portland Trailblazers, the Seattle Supersonics, and the Utah Jazz. Rivals reunited. It feels so good, doesn't it? Midwest Division, we have the Las Vegas, whatever it is that they're going to be called, Minnesota Timberwolves, Oklahoma City Thunder, and Phoenix Suns. And the Southwest Division, we have the 3 Texas teams, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, and their good buddies to the east, the New Orleans Pelicans. Now, the reason why I set it up to where there's 4 divisions in each conference as opposed to the current 3, and there's 4 teams in each division, is as this: scheduling. So let's take the Boston Celtics, for instance, the now NBA champions. Let's say, for instance, we want to have them face each team in their division 4 times a year. So that would be Brooklyn 4 times, New York 4 times, Toronto 4 times. Then we go ahead and schedule 3 games against each team in their own conference 3 times a week, 3 times a year. That leaves 2 times for each team in the Western Conference for every year. Now, that comes out to a grand total of 80 games. What about the other 2 games? There are currently 82 games. Well, I have a theory about that. There's 2 ways to go about this. The first way we could go about it is we eliminate the 2 extra games. And then we just, chalk that up as part of the in-season tournament, since Adam Silver is insistent on that being a thing. Or we could have what, the NFL likes to call the rivalry series. So let's say, for instance, we want to have the Celtics and the Lakers face off 1 extra time each year. We schedule an extra game between the Celtics and the Lakers once a year. Same way like we would do, say, Miami and Orlando. Instead of the regular 4, we would get 5. Or if we wanted, say, Vegas and, Golden State, we could have them facing off 4 times instead of 3. These are things that we could probably, come up with to kind of intertwine some different variations so it's not the same formulaic system over and over and over. And this helps to kind of revitalize the scheduling a little bit, maybe kind of bring in some of that excitement. Because one of the things that I've noticed about the NFL every offseason for the last 5 or 6 years has been that the schedule release has been one of the most anticipated moments in the offseason. course, that's part of the reason for that might be because the NFL likes to throw in some like interesting elements. I know one year the Los Angeles Chargers kind of released a schedule release video that rivaled some of the best anime that I've ever seen. And I know Utah at one time had, I think it was like a video game type of thing where it was like, oh, hey, we're leveling up and we're going to face the Lakers or something like that. Stuff like that. I think some elements like that could help generate more interest in the sport and in the league, as opposed to just doing the same old over and over again. Stuff like that could help generate more interest. But let me know your guys' thoughts are. I'm tired. It's been an emotionally and physically exhausting day. So we're going to call it there now. But if you are interested in donating, the donation button in the upper right hand corner of theclosingtag.com, pretty much all the blogs have the same donation button, so you don't have to worry about, well, what if I go to the Sports Central page of the Closing Tag? Or what if I go to Game Stream? Or what if I go to Tech Time? You don't have to worry about any of that. Just donation button in the upper hand corner of each page of the Closing Tag network. You'll be fine. If you're watching this on Spotify or even listening to this on Spotify, leave a review. If you're watching this on Facebook, like, share, comment, share with friends, share with family. If you're watching this on YouTube, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. That way, you are notified every time that a new video drops, including reels. We just dropped a reel earlier tonight on my last episode of Biter Flight. I don't know when I'll be doing another one of those for a while, but the Curry in a Hurry episode is now realized, as I'm calling it. So you'll be notified anytime that a reel drops. You'll be notified anytime a new podcast episode drops. So definitely hit that bell for notifications. And I want to thank everyone for liking, for listening, for downloading, for donating, for doing everything you can to help support the podcast. Your efforts are not going unnoticed. So thank you. And until next time, remember to include your closing tags. Thank you. This has been a Galactic Digital Studios production.